And this stage, this is important for the development of our progressive ideas in the history of Cuba, because later on, when after the war had ended, came in the United States, there was the McCarthy period of McCarthy, and McCarthy, of course, Cuba being a photography of the United States. I mean, everything was done under the guidance of the American embassy and all that. We had the McCarthyism also in Cuba. The anti-communist ideals were developed strongly in Cuba in those days, in the 40s or the 50s. And that will be, when we come to this, one of the reasons for which it was very difficult to establish a unity among revolutionaries, which included the communists and the non-communist revolutionaries, which we finally did under the guidance of Fidel Castro. Cuba from 1902 till 1959 was a part of the United States. In 1948, we had the last elections of this normal. The Americans, of course, established the 4-year periods. Everything was like in the States. The elections with all this money going around, corruption up to the head. And in 1948, there was a bit. This last president that we had, last president elected in this by this constitution means, was elected. But then one of the leaders of the ruling party at the time, which was it was called the Cuban Revolutionary Party, Orthodox, a faction called Orthodox. There was a leader. One of the leaders of this party called Chivas, his name was Chivas, he formed another party. But his flag, his slogan was honesty. So corrupted was, because the governments of those times were so corrupted that he just called for honesty. Nothing else. Honesty, yes. The symbol of the party was a broom to clean up the country from corruption. But that was too much for the Americans. That was not consulted to the Americans, and that is why they got Batista in the scene again. And in 1952, the elections that were going to take place in June, the process was interrupted when Batista was called by the American embassy to do a coup d'etat and become a de facto president. The Orthodox Party was any person that they would have presented would have easily won the election, but the Americans didn't want that. And then Batista took over power. This coup d'etat took place. And there was a young lawyer in the Orthodox Party who was running for the House of Representatives, a seat in the House of Representatives called Fidel Castro, that he presented a demand to have Batista taken to court and ousted from the government for what he had done. That was incredible. I mean, he was repressed and all that. So, but anyway, Batista took over the government the 10th of March of 1952, a couple of months before the elections, or 3 or 4 months before the election would take place, and there were people like Fidel Castro and many of the students and especially the students, the workers, the Communist Party that was then existent because it had disappeared and it reappeared and all that. They had no possibilities of legal action. And then Fidel Castro decided to do this attack on the Moncada fortress, the second fortress. It was not going to be really a military, it was just an action to start another action. He was going to attack the military fortress, to take the weapons and go into the mountains and do what he did sometime later, no? And but the attack was a disaster. Most of the persons who attacked, revolutionaries in the attack, were killed after being caught. There were 2 or 3 soldiers and 2 or 3 revolutionaries died in the battle, and the rest were tortured and killed. Fidel Castro, incidentally, was not killed in that attack, as others were, for it was something practically miraculous. He was found when he tried to go to the mountains, but he was caught when he was sleeping in some place, but he was caught by a sergeant, a black man, who was very honorable. He considered himself very honorable, and he knew that the revolutionaries were being killed after caught, tortured and killed. And then he decided, and he got the prisoner and 2 or 3 that were with him, and took him to the press and to the court directly, and that saved the life of Fidel. But for example, almost all of the others were caught and tortured and killed. Then Fidel was put in prison, along with all the others that had survived and became prisoners. And then another miraculous thing happened. The Americans were pressing on Batista to legalize his situation, because there was, he was just a de facto president. They wanted him to become a legal president. He had to call elections. Okay, Batista said, okay, I'll call elections. He was going to be the candidate, the only one. But then yes, but you have to put free the political prisoners. And that's how Fidel and all the Moncada veterans were liberated, with a great opposition by Batista, but it was the Americans that were deciding, no? And then what happened then was that when they were left free, they were left free but not free. They were constantly being repressed and all that. And then the other strategy that Fidel used to continue was they went to Mexico with a group of the men had been with him at the Moncada, and also with others, to prepare an expedition to come back. In Mexico, he included other people, like, for example, another very important addition in that way was Che Guevara. Che Guevara was an Argentinian doctor, very young, younger than Fidel, that came that had been in Mexico and who had a revolutionary experience. And he met the Cubans that were there training to come with Fidel, and that's how Che entered the expedition. So they came in the Granma for grandmother. That's the name of the vessel, that the yacht, a small yacht, where 82 of them came, disembarked in the eastern province, and started the war there. But in the days when Fidel came out of jail, he started the formation of the underground section of the 26th of July movement, which was the massive part of the 26th of July movement. Because we had, for example, that's when I integrated in the 26th of July movement as thousands and thousands of Cuban young people, especially students, but also young workers and all that, by gained by Fidel's defense speech. Being a lawyer, he assumed his own defense when he was being trialed after the attack. And that speech that Fidel was the one that moved the sensibility of many, many, many young men and women that joined the revolution in those days. And it was in what concerns the 26 July movement, that's the way conditions were prepared for the victory of on the first day of January of 1959. But I must tell you that there were other organizations. I mentioned the People's Socialist Party. The People's Socialist Party was not, as I told you before, was not in favor of military actions against the dictatorship. They preferred massive acts under ground root activities and conferences and things like that. And we, our generation, we were fighting directly for the war. The other important force was the Students' Revolutionary Directorate, headed by the president of the Organization of Students in the university, Jose Antonio Echevarria. So then at the end of the struggle, when the victory was obtained, we had three revolutionary organizations. After the victory of the revolution, then we had first what we call the integrated revolutionary organizations. Well, the three more or less. Then we created the People's United Socialist, the People's Party, United People's Party for the Revolution, for socialism. Huh? Well, that's how the revolution came to power. The Americans have always attacked the Cuban Revolution first because it was part of the Sino-Soviet coalition of powers and all that. Then I don't know. We were sending troops to fight the apartheid in Africa. What's Cuba doing there? And more recently, that because we violate human rights. And this is so. And this is why it hurts more. This is that our strategy in the battles of the revolution was based in the respect for the lives and the integrity of the prisoners. The principle is this: the enemy should feel that he's going to be well treated if he gives in, and this will be known by the enemy after some time. And this was what happened in 1958. 58. I mean, the last year, or even after 57, 58. The enemy surrendered very easily, because they knew that they would be taking the weapons, cured if they were injured, and okay, you go now and you join your unit, wherever it is, you find it, and they used to go and find another unit. They turned into that unit, and then they would tell their colleagues there, they would say, no, don't fight till the end. You surrendered, that they respect very much. And that I personally knew in those days a soldier of Batista's army, of the official army, that had surrendered 4 times in a period of 2 months or something like that. But he was a propagandist and that made the revolution advance very much. Things that came later, we're still speaking about the 50s, the decade of the 50s was the first year of the revolution, which was very important for the events to come in the revolution.